Mama Pendo stood on the balcony of her opulent home, her gaze fixed on the city's skyline. The ancestral lands beyond the city's edge seemed to call to her, their rolling hills a reminder of simpler times. She clutched a beaded necklace, a gift from her late husband, and sighed deeply. Though she had built a life of wealth and comfort, her heart remained tethered to the values of her ancestors. Inside, the house was quiet, the silence broken only by the faint clinking of dishes as Auntie Wanjiku prepared tea. Mama Pendo turned and walked into the living room, her footsteps deliberate. Wanjiku looked up, her face lighting with a warm smile. "You've been out there for some time, sister," Wanjiku said, setting the tray down. "What weighs on your mind this morning?" Mama Pendo sat down, her movements slow but purposeful. "It is Mwenda," she admitted, her voice tinged with worry. "I fear he's losing his way. He's surrounded by people who value wealth above all else. I see it in his eyes, Wanjiku, a kind of emptiness. He has forgotten the lessons we taught him." Wanjiku poured the tea, her brow furrowing. "Mwenda is ambitious, yes, but he's also your son. He carries your strength within him. Perhaps he only needs to be reminded of who he is." Mama Pendo's lips curved into a faint smile. "You have always been my rock, Wanjiku," she said, "but reminding him will not be easy. The people around him, they feed his doubts." Meanwhile, across the city, Mwenda strolled into his glass-walled office, exuding confidence. His tailored suit and charming smile masked a weariness he dared not show. He greeted his assistant briefly, before settling into his chair. Outside, his employees moved with a precision that reflected the pressure of working under a man of his stature. Kayari, a young janitor, pushed her cleaning cart down the corridor. Her uniform was neat, though worn, and her face carried an expression of quiet determination. As she cleaned, she exchanged greetings with the staff, her warmth evident in every interaction. Her mind, however, was on her siblings at home. Their school fees were overdue, and she had spent the previous night calculating how to stretch her meager earnings. In the break room, she crossed paths with Zara, the glamorous socialite who often visited Mwenda. Zara's impeccable attire and air of superiority made her impossible to ignore. She glanced at Kari with mild disdain before flipping her braided hair over her shoulder and walking away, her heels clicking sharply against the tiles. Kari watched her go, her expression unreadable. Later that evening, Mama Pendo gathered her family for a meal at her ancestral home. The table was laden with traditional dishes, their rich aromas filling the air. Laughter echoed as relatives shared stories, but Mama Pendo's attention was fixed on Mwenda. When the conversation turned to marriage, an elder asked, "Mwenda, when will we see you settle down and bring a daughter-in-law to this family?" Mwenda's smile was wry as he leaned back in his chair. "In this world," he said, "everyone has a price. Love is just another transaction." The room fell silent, the weight of his words heavy in the air. Mama Pendo's heart sank. She saw the shock on the faces of the elders, the disappointment in Wanjiku's eyes. "Mwenda," Mama Pendo said softly, "not everything can be measured in coins. There is a richness in humility, in love, and in the values we hold dear." Mwenda shrugged, his expression indifferent. "Perhaps, Mother," he said, "but the world I live in doesn't work that way." As the evening wore on, Mama Pendo's resolve hardened. She excused herself and stepped outside, gazing at the stars. Wanjiku joined her, placing a comforting hand on her shoulder. "He's lost," Mama Pendo whispered, "but I will find a way to remind him of who he is." Wanjiku nodded. "You have always been resourceful, sister. What do you plan to do?" Mama Pendo's eyes gleamed with determination. I will go to his world, Wanjiku. I will disguise myself, work among his people, and see the truth for myself. Only then can I guide him back to the path he was meant to follow." Wanjiku smiled, her faith in Mama Pendo unwavering. "Then may the ancestors guide your steps," she said. And so, the seeds of Mama Pendo's plan were sown, her heart resolute, as she prepared to embark on a journey unlike any she had undertaken before. Her mission was clear: to uncover the truth and bring her son back to the values that had once defined their family. The morning sun cast a golden hue over the city of Nyanjiru, its rays glinting off the towering skyscrapers. Among the bustling crowd, a woman moved with deliberate purpose. Her once regal kitenge was replaced by a simple, faded lesso, her head wrapped in a scarf that whispered of humility. Mama Pendo had become Mama Nyakio, a name steeped in meaning, mother of wisdom. As she stepped into the headquarters of Moenda Enterprises, the air buzzed with the clipped sounds of heels on marble floors and the hum of conversations in sleek offices. Mama Nyakio's hands trembled slightly as she clutched her cleaning supplies. Her body, no longer accustomed to physical labor, protested with every movement. Still, her spirit remained unshaken, fueled by the fire of a mother's resolve. "She will endure," Mama Pendo whispered to herself, invoking the strength of her foremothers who had tilled the land with bare hands and unbroken wills. Inside, the office was a world of glass and chrome, where success was measured by the shine of one's shoes and the weight of their wallet. Employees rushed past her, their eyes fixed on screens, their words clipped and hurried. The air smelled of coffee and ambition, but to Mama Pendo it felt cold, devoid of the warmth of shared humanity. As she wiped a glass partition, her eyes caught a glimpse of Moenda striding through the hallway. His tailored suit was immaculate, his presence commanding, yet there was something hollow in his eyes, a shadow she had not seen before. "This is not the boy I raised," she thought, her heart heavy. In the break room, a young woman knelt beside a bucket of soapy water, her hands red from scrubbing. Kajari's face was youthful, but carried the weight of responsibility. When another janitor accidentally spilled a tray of coffee, Kari was the first to rush forward with a cloth, her smile gentle and unassuming. "Don't worry, we'll clean it together," she said, her voice calm and soothing. Mama Nyakio observed from the corner, her eyes narrowing in thought. Here was a girl who worked tirelessly, yet carried herself with grace. Later, during a rare quiet moment, Mama Nyakio approached Kayari. "You have a kind heart," she said, her voice low but firm. Kari looked up, startled, then smiled. "Kindness costs nothing, Mama. My mother used to say it's the strongest thread that holds us together." The tranquility was shattered one day when a supervisor stormed into the break room, his voice sharp with accusation. "Who left the storeroom unlocked?" he barked, his glare sweeping over the janitors. A timid man stuttered, I might have forgotten." Before he could finish, Kari stepped forward. "It was me," she said, her chin lifted defiantly, "but it was an honest mistake. There was no harm done." The supervisor's eyes narrowed. "You're lucky I don't fire you," he snapped, before turning on his heel. Mama Nyakio's heart swelled with admiration. Kari had stood up not just for herself, but for someone who had no voice. Zara's arrival was announced by the click of her stilettos and the scent of an expensive perfume that seemed to linger long after she had passed. Her laughter filled the office as she leaned close to Mwenda, her manicured fingers brushing his arm. "You've built an empire, Mwenda," she purred, "but every king needs a queen." Mama Nyakio, sweeping the corridor, paused to watch. Zara's beauty was undeniable. but her eyes were calculating, her smile a mask. When a janitor accidentally bumped into her, Zara's voice turned cold. "Watch where you're going," she snapped, her disdain cutting through the air. Mama Nyakio clenched her hands around the broom handle. "She's a snake wrapped in silk," she murmured to herself. During lunch breaks, Mama Nyakio sat beside Kaari under the shade of a jacaranda tree. They shared stories, their voices weaving a tapestry of struggles and dreams. "My father always said education is the key," Kaari said, her eyes alight with hope. "That's why I want to build a school, so children like my siblings can have a chance at a better life." Mama Nyakio's heart ached with both pride and sorrow. Kaari's dreams reminded her of the teachings she had once instilled in Mwenda. "You remind me of someone I know," Mama Nyakio said, her voice soft. "Never let the world steal that fire in you." That night, as Mama Nyakio returned to her small rented room, she sat by the window and gazed at the moon. Memories of her ancestors' teachings filled her mind, the stories of courage, humility, and honor that had shaped her. "Kari is a daughter of the land," she thought. "She carries the wisdom of generations, while Mwenda chases shadows." Her resolve strengthened. She would not let her son lose himself in a world of illusions. The next day, Mama Nyakio watched as Mwenda and Zara left the office together, their laughter echoing in the hallway. Her chest tightened, the weight of her silence growing heavier. "She tightens her grip on him like a hunter setting a trap," Mama Nyakio thought. Yet she remained patient, her plan unfolding like a slow river, winding toward its destiny. In the days that followed, Mama Nyakio observed quietly, her broom a shield, her disguise a veil. She saw Mwenda's growing distance from the values she had once cherished, but also glimpsed Kaari's unwavering light. As the sun set each evening, she whispered to herself, "The truth will reveal itself in time." The stage was set, and the players were in motion. Mama Pindo only had to wait. The office was alive with its usual hum of activity. Zara sat at Mwenda's desk, her red nails tapping rhythmically against the polished wood. Her eyes flickered toward the break room, where Kari's laughter carried softly. "She's gaining his favor," Zara muttered under her breath. Her smile, though dazzling, was tinged with malice. She glanced around the room, her mind weaving a plan as cunning as the trickster Anansi. Zara slipped into the janitor's closet, her movements swift and deliberate. From her handbag, she pulled out a gold necklace, one of Mwenda's prized possessions, a gift from a prominent business partner. Carefully, she tucked it into Kari's cleaning bucket, covering it with rags. As she stepped back, she allowed herself a triumphant smirk. "Let's see how virtuous the little saint looks now," she whispered. The break room door slammed open, and the sharp voice of the supervisor cut through the chatter. "Kaari, come here this instant." Kaari stood, her face pale but composed. The other janitors exchanged uneasy glances, sensing trouble. "Yes, sir?" Kaari asked, her voice steady despite her racing heart. The supervisor held up the gold necklace, its delicate chain catching the light. "This was found in your cleaning supplies. Do you care to explain how it got there?" The room fell silent. Kari's mouth opened, then closed, her mind scrambling for answers. I don't know," she stammered. "I've never seen that before." "Lies," Zara's voice rang out, dripping with false righteousness. She stepped forward, her expression a perfect mask of outrage. "Mwenda, this girl has been stealing from your office. It's shameful." The weight of the accusation pressed down on Kaari. "I would never." "Enough," the supervisor barked. "Until we get to the bottom of this, you're suspended from your duties. Leave the premises immediately." Kari's eyes filled with tears as she gathered her belongings. The whispers of her co-workers followed her out, like a chorus of judgment. Mwenda paced his office, Zara by his side. "I told you, Mwenda," Zara said, her voice smooth and persuasive. "You can't trust everyone, no matter how innocent they seem." Mwenda rubbed his temples, conflicted. "I thought Kari was different, but the evidence—" "Exactly," Zara said, placing a hand on his arm. "You need people around you who understand loyalty and integrity. People like me." Later that evening, the office staff were gathered in a tense huddle, their whispers silenced by the sound of slow, deliberate footsteps. Mama Nyakio entered the room, her presence commanding despite her humble attire. "Enough," she said, her voice firm yet calm. "It is time for the truth to be revealed." All eyes turned to her as she reached for the scarf around her head. With a single motion, she removed it, revealing the familiar face of Mama Pendo. Gasps filled the room. Mwenda froze, his eyes wide with shock. "Mother?" he whispered. "Yes, my son," Mama Pendo said, her gaze steady. "I have walked among you as Mama Nyakio, watching and learning, and now I bring the truth to light." She turned to Kari, who stood near the doorway, her shoulders slumped in defeat. "This girl is no thief. She is a child of honor and integrity, the kind of person who would rather sacrifice herself than let another suffer." Mama Pendo reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small hidden camera. "This," she said, holding it high, "has captured the real thief at work." The video played on a nearby screen, showing Zara planting the necklace in Kaari's bucket. The office erupted in murmurs. Zara's face paled, her composure crumbling like dry earth under the sun. "You set this up?" Mwenda's voice was sharp, cutting through the noise. He turned to Zara, his expression a mixture of anger and disbelief. Zara stammered. I only wanted to protect you, Mwenda. She's beneath you." "Enough!" Mama Pendo's voice thundered, silencing the room. "It is pride and deceit that are beneath us. You have shown your true colors, Zara, and they are not worthy of this place." Zara's departure was swift and undignified. As she walked out of the building, head lowered, the staff's judgmental eyes followed her. Mama Pendo turned to Mwenda. "My son, you have been blind to what truly matters. Kaari represents the values you have forgotten: humility, kindness, and strength. It is not too late to learn." Mwenda lowered his head, shame washing over him. "You are right, Mother. I have strayed far from the path you taught me." He approached Kaari, his voice soft. "Kaari, I owe you an apology. I should have believed in you. Your integrity has opened my eyes." Kaari looked at him, her expression a mixture of relief and hesitation. "Thank you," she said quietly. "But trust is not so easily rebuilt." That evening, Mama Pendo sat with Kari under the jacaranda tree. "Child," she said, her voice warm, "do not let fear hold you back. The heart knows no boundaries, and true love is built on shared values, not wealth or status." Kari nodded, her heart still uncertain but slightly lighter, and in the distance, the sound of drums echoed, a reminder of the ancestors, their wisdom guiding the living as the story continued to unfold. The marketplace buzzed with chatter, but when Zara walked through, the hum dimmed. Women whispered behind their baskets of yams, and men shook their heads as she passed. Her once proud stride was now slow, her glittering attire now dull under the weight of shame. "A liar's wealth is as fleeting as morning dew," one elder muttered, loud enough for Zara to hear. Her heart sank. The words pierced her, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. She had built her life on illusions, and now the truth had swept it all away. Zara hesitated at the gate of Mama Pendo's home. The yard was modest but alive with the vibrant colors of bougainvillea and the scent of fresh earth. She clutched her shawl tightly, her usually sharp eyes now filled with uncertainty. Mama Pendo sat under the old mango tree, peeling cassava with steady hands. When she noticed Zara, she paused, her wise eyes softening but remaining firm. "Come closer, child's," Mama Pendo said. Zara knelt before her, tears brimming. "Mama, I have wronged you and your son. I let greed and pride blind me. I came to ask for forgiveness." Mama Pendo studied her for a moment, then gestured for Zara to sit beside her. "The river that forgets its source will always run dry," she said. "You forgot where you came from, Zara, but it is not too late to find your way back." Zara nodded, her tears falling freely. "Teach me, Mama. I want to learn." Mama Pendo handed her a cassava root and a knife. "Start here, child. Humility begins with small, honest work." The city lights seemed dimmer to Mwenda as he sat in his office, staring at the blueprint for a new luxury building. His mind wandered to Kayari, her unwavering strength even in the face of injustice, and to his mother, whose wisdom had guided him back from the brink of ruin. He pushed the blueprint aside and pulled out a sheet of paper. Instead of skyscrapers, he began sketching a schoolhouse. "Mama is right," Mwenda murmured to himself. "True wealth lies in what we give back." The journey to Mama Pendo's ancestral home was long, winding through red-soiled roads and endless fields of maize. Mwenda arrived as the sun set, bathing the land in golden light. He stepped into the old hut, its walls adorned with calabashes and woven mats, and knelt before the small altar, honoring their ancestors. Mama Pendo's voice came from behind him. "Do you feel it, my son? The weight of their wisdom?" "Yes, Mama," Mwenda said, his voice thick with emotion. "I see now that I must carry their lessons forward, not just for myself, but for those who come after me." Under the shade of a baobab tree, Mwenda met Kari. She was hesitant at first, her hands busy weaving a basket, her eyes avoiding his. "I want to start again, Kari," Mwenda said earnestly. "Not as the man I was, but as someone who has learned what truly matters." Kari looked at him, her gaze steady. "Words are easy, Mwenda. Actions take strength." "I understand," he replied, "and I'm ready to prove my intentions, not just to you, but to the community." Their conversations became a daily rhythm, a steady beat of shared dreams and values. Slowly, Kari's walls began to crumble. At the gathering in Mama Pendo's ancestral home, the air was filled with the aroma of roasted maize and the sound of drums. The entire community had come together, their laughter and chatter mingling under the starlit sky. Mwenda stood before Kayari, his hands trembling slightly as he held a small carved box. "Kayari," he began, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "you have taught me the value of humility, kindness, and strength. You embody the virtues my mother has always held dear. Will you honor me by walking this journey of life together?" Tears glistened in Kari's eyes as she nodded. The crowd erupted in cheers, ululations rising into the night. The wedding was a celebration of tradition and unity. Ka'ari wore a beaded crown, her dress adorned with patterns symbolizing harmony and prosperity. Mwenda, in a woven kitenge, stood beside her, his face glowing with pride. Elders blessed the couple, their hands resting heavily on their heads as they murmured prayers for wisdom and resilience. Children danced around the fire, their laughter carrying the promise of future generations. As the festivities wound down, Mama Pendo watched the couple from her seat under the baobab tree. The sound of the drum beats echoed in her heart, each beat a reminder of the lessons passed down through time. She whispered to herself, "True wealth is found in the love and values we pass down to future generations." The moon rose high, casting a silver light over the gathering. The story was complete, but its lessons would live on, carried by those who had listened and learned.